Yo, welcome back everybody. I hope you guys are doing well as always. Today I felt like making some stuff for NETTSPEND, similar to the song Shut Up, just kind of like a super obnoxious digital beat. I ended up recording the whole melody, and just like the audio file kind of got corrupted, or it was just kind of weird. So I'm just gonna go ahead and break down the whole melody for you, and then we'll do the drums live as always. So yeah, let's just hop right into FL and I'll show you guys what I did for the melody. So to get a little preview of the melody, this is what it's sounding like. So yeah, super like virtual, just kind of like distorted. I think it would be pretty good for NETTSPEND. But yeah, let's just get started with what I did for the melody. So there was actually a lot that kind of went into this, so I'm kind of bummed none of it recorded well. But basically, I started off with this lead pattern, and this is from the Sunboy and Cray Soul Serum Bank. It's the kinetic lead, and I laid down this pattern that was just kind of like super all over the place, similar to the lead from Shut Up. Then the next sound, we went and added a bass, and this bass actually changed a little bit after I rendered everything out, so I'll show you that later down the line. But then the next sound we got is a pad. It's the Onyx pad, and it's also from that Soul Serum Bank, and I just laid down these two notes. So a really cool, just kind of like background texture. And then the last thing I added before I rendered it all out was another serum. And this is from my Overcast 3 kit. It's the Key Blank preset. So just like I said, a little bit like of a filler melody. So then what I did is I took all of those sounds and rendered them out into this audio file. And then I ended up reversing this and like chopping it up a bunch. And we ended up with this chop here. Essentially all I did was I just took that, chopped it up in the playlist and like rearranged the sections until I got something cool that I liked. Then what I did is I brought back in the bass. So like I said before, we added in another bass from Serum, or actually we added in another bass from the Freak 2 VST. This is the In Sync bass. So we just added the low end that kind of followed the chop. And then I added in another lead pattern, also from the Freak 2 VST. This is the Matriarch lead, and this again I ran through some shaper box. So after I took this pattern and ran it through the shaper box, we ended up with this as a chop. So just another really cool like background texture. And then the last thing I added was this preset again from Freak 2, and it's the Rave lead. And again, I had rendered this sound out and chopped it up a bunch to kind of get a pattern that I liked, but originally it just sounded like this. So after rendering that out, I just kind of chopped it up and only took one small section from it and just repeated it a bunch. And this just kind of adds as like a secondary sort of melody. But yeah, that's it for all of the melody layers. So now we're gonna hop over into a new FLP, and I'm gonna do the drums live for you guys. So I actually bumped the BPM up to 160. The loop was originally at 155, but I wanted it a little bit faster. I'm gonna be using a bunch of my kits for these drums, so let's just hop right into it. Alright, I think that's gonna do it for this beat. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I think it turned out pretty good. It's definitely like more on the experimental side of stuff. But I think it was still pretty fire. So like always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow me on Instagram. If you liked any of the sounds used in this video, you can check out my kits at thekitwarehouse.com. Link to that is in the description as well. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.